So this is Rochester, New York. And I hadn't been in the city for more than just a few minutes when I get stuck at this light. And there's this guy with this sign who's clearly tweaking on the corner. And you can see he's looking for someone. And then you see this white car on the right in front of me. He walks over there and his hand pops out of the sunroof and hands him a small baggie. And I was thinking, welcome to Rochester, New York. Now, for the rest of this drive, I'm just going to give you some stats on the city. And Rochester has a population of 205,000 people, and it's been declining since the 1950s. It's 38% white, 36% black, and 18% Hispanic, with a small 3% Asian population. So it's a fairly diverse city. The average age is 33, which is normal, and 16% of the adults are seniors. The population is 52% female and 48% male. And I always find that a little odd when the difference is that great. I mean, 51-49 is kind of like, that's kind of normal, but 52-48, there's a pretty good gap there. The average income is $38,000 a year, and the city has a 28% poverty rate, which is on the high side. That's more than 1 in 4 of the people that live there live below the poverty line. 25% of the people there are married, which again, that's a little on the low side. And 66% of the people that live there were born there. And it's listing 9% foreign born and 4.6% are non-citizens, but this number was probably from a couple years ago, and that number is likely much higher today. Homicides there go up and down, with murder rates in the teens up to as high as in the 30s. In 2019, they had 32 homicides. In 2020, they had 51. In 2021, they had 85. So that's nearly tripled from 2019 to 2021. In 2022, they had 75, and in 2023, they had 58. And the murder rates in that span went from 15.6 in 2019 up to as high as 40.2 in 2021. Last year, in 2023, the murder rate was 27.5. And these are high numbers. If you think about Chicago is the city that clearly has the most homicides, but their murder rate's only around 22. So the murder rates over the last, aside from 2019, so from 2020 till now, the murder rates have all been higher than the murder rate that they see in Chicago. So the violent crime here is listed as 98% higher than the national average. And your odds of becoming a victim of a crime is 1 in 24, which is kind of normal for a city like this. And the year-over-year crime is showing an increase of 3%, which doesn't sound like a big number, but if you continue to have that year after year, the crime is going to get out of control fast. The cost of living there is 24% lower than the national average and 11% lower than the New York average, so it's relatively cheap. Especially for the state of New York, it's on the cheaper side. And 42%, this is where we get into the bad parts of the city. 42% of the students graduate proficient in reading and math. And the New York average is actually on the higher side as far as states go in the United States, where 56% of the students on average in New York State graduate proficient at reading and math. The national average is only 48%, so 56% across the state of New York is really good, and 42% is, considerably lower than the national average, but surprisingly is not too bad for a city that has higher crime. Typically, it's even lower than that. It's like a third of the students in a lot of these cities with high crime. 75% of the residents completed the 8th grade that live there, so 3 out of every 4 have completed the 8th grade, and only 74% of the people that live there have graduated high school. So basically 3 out of 4 of the people that live there have graduated high school, and with numbers like that, it doesn't bode well for a city going forward. If they don't get some of that stuff in check and they don't get the crime in check, that city can go out of control really fast. Because if you're not graduating students that can read and write, they're not going to be able to get a good job. And the crime rates in these areas is just going to keep rising. So I'm going to let the rest of this footage play out, and you can enjoy Rochester, New York.